Hello, and welcome to Global Perspectives, a web series featuring educators from around the globe sharing their stories of Lindamood-Bell professional learning and increasing student literacy. I'm Brilliana Pennington, Regional Director of Development for Lindamood-Bell for Schools. Founded in 1986, Lindamood-Bell Learning Processes builds the imagery-language foundation to teach students to read, comprehend, and mathematically reason. In addition to more than 50 learning centers worldwide, we offer levels of professional learning for educators. The levels are designed to help teachers become proficient in implementing sensory cognitive instruction. Through a continuous cycle of feedback and support, a range of options for follow-up coaching include local, regional, and national level partnerships with schools and government agencies. In this Global Perspectives episode, Spotlight on Canada, Sensory Cognitive Instruction for Students with Special Needs, I'm joined by Sarah Cohen, a school administrator based out of Vancouver, British Columbia. Sarah, welcome, and thank you so much for speaking with me today.
Thank you for having me. It's an absolute pleasure.
To begin, tell me a little bit about your background in education and your online school.
I'd love to. I've been in special education now for over 20 years, and my first entry was really basically tutoring children in phonics. I was trained in Orton-Gillingham method and the Wilson reading method. I unfortunately hadn't heard about Lindamood-Bell till much later. I wish I had known about it sooner. And I became a teacher, and I had been working in the special ed area in a couple of ways. And when Howard Eaton was going to open a school here in Vancouver using the Arrowsmith program, he asked me to come get on board, and I was very curious to think about how different areas of weakness in a learning profile could be strengthened outside of reading and math and writing. So things to do with executive functioning or understanding nonverbal information, auditory processing. And once I started teaching it for a year, I just got hooked. So it's been 16 years that I've been in the Arrowsmith world. I'm really excited to be here today to talk about how it's come full circle back to really how that integrates with the teaching of phonics, and specifically the Lindamood-Bell program.
We had the pleasure of partnering last year on online workshops.
Yeah.
You and your team participated in both Seeing Stars and Visualizing and Verbalizing Level 1 workshops. Long before we needed to do them online, we did, right? What were some of the factors that led you to want to partner with us on professional learning?
It's a bigger question. It seems simple in a way. Like over the years, we've sort of always looked at, when we have students that come to us, they step outside the regular school system, when they come to us full time, and they would work on Arrowsmith for a number of years, and we would continue to move them along through language arts curriculum and math curriculum. And there was always this tension of, we want to expose them to language arts curriculum that's age appropriate. But almost every single one of our students needed fairly intensive remediation in reading and writing in some way, shape, or form. And so we had tried Orton-Gillingham, and I'm trained in Orton-Gillingham. The knowledge I got from that is amazing. At the time that I was trained and at the time that we tried training our teachers in it, it was more information, not user-friendly enough, and quite challenging to deliver on a classroom level. It could be that other people have taken it in a different direction, so I don't want to say anyone, negative about that. But that had sort of, I think, left a sour taste in the mouth of a number of our teachers that phonics on a classroom level was not doable. And we really had come back around that we need to do this. We need to do more remediation in this area. And we were looking at sort of different programs around, and it was actually a couple parents who came forward and said, I really think you should look at Lindamood-Bell. So we started to look into it, and that's where we reached out to you. And, the more that we saw, the more we were convinced that this was exactly the program we needed for our students. and for our teachers. And I don't think that's highlighted enough, that teachers want to do so much for their students, and it can be overwhelming. And how do you plan for that? And how do you get detailed enough with these students? And how do you have the right materials? And how do you prep this? And how you prep that? And when our teachers saw the boxes of materials that come with seeing stars and verbalizing, visualizing, I could just see people's heart rates come down in a positive way. Just the relaxation and the enthusiasm and people really seeing how this could come to life has been incredible. And also throughout parent-teacher meetings through the years, parents would say, we're so happy you're using this program. We love how systematic it is. And I think in some ways, teachers were worried that it might get boring for some students, but the thing that we really came back to over and over again, that we saw, not that we sort of theorized, we thought this would be the case, and then it was really what we saw, is that when children were seeing themselves successfully moving through materials, they were just engaged. They didn't need a whole, pony show and, new variety every single day. They actually, you've got a 13-year-old that's reading at a grade 3 level. They want to be like every other 13-year-old. That's all the motivation they need. And you show them the tools by which they can do that, and they're on board. Yeah. So, we're big fans.
I love that you mentioned. I love that you mentioned that how helpful it is for the teachers. I talk to so many teachers that say, I have the passion to teach these students to read and comprehend. I just need a systematic, sequential way to do it. And when you hand them that, and then for the students, you meet them where they are, right? You start where their level is, and then you systematically work them to close the gap. I love the idea of that both the teachers are feeling gratified in their own instructions, and the students get to see the actual improvement, instead of always just trying to instruct them at the level where we want them to be, but actually meeting them where they are and slowly bringing them up. I agree. Sometimes that's all the motivation that's needed, especially for some of those older students. So,
it's huge. It's huge. And in the program that we use, has the same structure. So, identifying where students weak cognitively, isolating that, starting them with the level they're at, and building up. And so I think, I just think it's good instruction. It's the foundation of good instruction. And really grateful to be able to use it.
That's wonderful. How exactly is it being used? Are you delivering the instruction one-on-one or small groups? And how has that instruction been when you've transitioned to doing it online? You mentioned it a little bit earlier, but.
So we do a bunch of assessment. So sliding in the Lindamood-Bell assessment was not, it's another, but it was fine. We've been able to do it. And so teachers, sort of assess their own classes and create schedules. We find support for them to do that. And then once we have that, we can group students, and we try to group them obviously based on age as much as possible, but it's really also, they're already in mixed age classrooms in our school, roughly based on age, but so they're used to that format. And so then within those classes, we can group them into smaller groups based on their, what they need, whether they need seeing stars to start with. And most of our students need more of the seeing stars than the VV, although I want to come back to that. And so then we work with them in groups, but we also have a teacher that has a little bit more flexibility. So then she also is able to work with students individually here and there as they, I know.
Not all of the people from schools listening to this right now will going to be green with envy, but please continue.
So she'll do pull out here and there, especially if there's certain things that are really a hurdle for them. So we can really boost students here and there as needed as we go. And what I wanted to come back to with the VV point, most of our students are not doing full curriculum. Like when they come to us, some students come to us just after school as a, sort of separate program, but the students that come full day are really sort of in it for a shorter, more intense period of time of a couple of years. And as they start to get near the end, we introduce more curriculum. And what's so interesting about the verbalizing, visualizing from a teacher point of view is that it's just excellent curriculum for thinking about the written word. Like it can, obviously it's remediation for comprehension issues, and that piles on with how the exercises we do cognitively for comprehension. So that is really potent. But then when you're just taking children that have actually sort of come up to an average level with that, but now you're introducing like taking notes off the internet and all these things, as a teacher, it's just the most incredible, simple, direct curriculum that gets lodged in their brains to really how to think about the written word and what you do with that information. Not even from a special ed perspective. And so it was interesting how our teachers just started using it all the time.
That's so wonderful to hear. I've often thought that visualizing and verbalizing at its best is just a strong pedagogy, right? Yeah. It's just a way to teach and interact no matter what your content is. And I know many other educators have often thought, I wish I'd had this back when I was a secondary math teacher trying to teach word problems. How helpful would that have been, right? So I'm so glad to hear that they're seeing it expand, not just into these remediation groups, but throughout all of their teaching. So that's wonderful. Switching topics just a little, as you know, concerns about social emotional learning and, as you said, building quality learning connections online are in the news nearly daily. Yes. So how is your school addressing those concerns, and what's been your experience building a virtual community of learners?
First of all, we have instructors that are just fun to be with. And when students join us online, all of our instructors spend one-on-one time, not usually with the student and their parents. And so we invest the time before classes start where they get to know each other. And that's, I find, is essential. That reduces, any anxiety issues, comfort levels. And we spend a lot of time teaching them how we're using our online platforms. Obviously when you feel like you don't know what you're doing, your anxiety goes up a lot. And they also spend time teaching them a bit of the curriculum ahead of time so that once everybody gets together in the group, everybody at least sort of knows what's going on. And we really look at the first few weeks of school in terms of just, like all teachers do, but especially online, like this is culture setting time. They play a lot of games. We teach them, how to move throughout the online platform. We play chase games through that. The other piece that is very interesting, because our program has such a similar structure to the Lindamood-Bell piece, where we teach you where you're at, and then once you master that, you move up to something more challenging and more challenging. And so that structure, I find, makes people happy. Because you're successful. And I really fundamentally believe everybody actually wants to be successful. And if they look unengaged, if they look unhappy, there is some kind of blockage that is going on that is stopping them from being engaged and having that success. And that might be an emotional blockage. It might be a cognitive blockage. It could be, sort of a variety of things. But because those blockages aren't there, they're engaged, they're feeling successful, and their work with us is deeply meaningful. So I think anyone who's using Lindamood-Bell is going to really understand this. You're usually doing that because you're behind. So you have a sense of motivation that's quite strong, and you have a sense of purpose to what you're doing. Different than if you're just in kind of a general curriculum classroom, you have to go to school, so you're there. This is like, I want to be a reader. I want to be able to read online. I want to be able to read books. I want to be successful. I'm afraid I won't be able to be employed. Like, you have a different real world motivation to the work. So the students are quite motivated. And in that, when they reach those successes, it's all that more meaningful, So it's sort of like a snowball effect, but it really, it's a combination of like our staff. And I think anyone that gets into special ed really is like, not that there are better teachers and worse teachers, but they might be my favorite teachers. And I know that you see that in your work as well. But it's that pedagogy, same thing as Lindamood-Bell. It's the successes, it's the meaning, and then it's the cognitive change they're going through simultaneous. And then with the Lindamood-Bell curriculum, they start to be able to do things they never could before.
Right.
And and then forget about it. Then we're off to the races, right? They're really in it. Yeah.
When they're learning to their potential, right? That is the biggest emotional boost what one can get, and what a change for so many of these students who have struggled for so long
and it changes families. It changes families, because once parents start to be able to see a child become self-sufficient, the parents relax, because you're like, oh, my child will survive. In the world, my child will be able to cope. And you really, I hear that from families all the time, but you see that transformation when they see their child being able to read, when they see them being able to understand things, when they see them being able to make friends. We had parents, we do monthly parent meetings. I think that's maybe also, I think that helps in families too. So every month, all the parents online get together, and we do some parent ed about things. We have discussion and topic. And every month there's a parent sharing, like, my child's in grade 11, or in the States, that's a senior. Is that right? No, that's
the junior.
Junior. Yeah. Sorry.
But for our viewers around the world, it's secondary, year 11, year 12, something of that nature.
When they're around 17 years old.
Yes, there you go.
That their child is happy to go to school for the first time since grade 1, and that they're getting up in the morning, making themselves breakfast and making their bed, and going and hopping online and excited to see their community of people, that they're all there with a common purpose. And it's beautiful.
It makes my heart grow. That's how I feel when I hear things like that. Like, just makes my heart grow to hear that. Speaking of parents, you are, of course, a parent as as being an educator. What would you say to other parents who are really struggling to advocate for their child with special education needs during this challenging time?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think I've been talking to a lot of educators that work online and some really innovative thinkers. I think that we sort of need to step back a little bit. And school is, of course, important in so many ways to our children. It's their entire world at this age, and of course prepares them for jobs and post-secondary. But I think we have to conceive of it as one piece in the puzzle. Helping your child to be a resilient learner, and get a strong foundation, and working with these symbols of language and numbers, and flexibility of thinking, I think, are key. Hopefully your school can help you with that. And if they can't, luckily there are other providers out there that can help. Obviously I'm a huge Arrowsmith advocate, and that's from, but I'm also a huge advocate for things like Lindamood-Bell. And you said, and obviously this is now my favorite of these kind of programs. But you can do these online, you can do them in person. And I think you have to look at your whole child, and that learning is a huge part of that, but to really kind of take down your own anxiety about it and figure out a plan, of what's most needed. What do I need to tackle? It's a time of uncertainty, and I think we have the Darwin idea, Ron. It's not survival of the fittest, it's survival of the adaptable. And anything you can do to help your child learn to be adaptable, both in terms of, skills with obviously reading, writing, thinking, their cognitive functioning, their physical health, I think you're going to build a lifelong happier child and a lifelong happier family.
Yeah. And in some ways, it goes back to that idea of the social-emotional learning, right? Support them in all the ways you can to make a strong social and emotional person that can know that the only consistent thing in life is going to be change, and how well you can adapt to that is going to be critical going forward. Yeah.
The one last thing I should really just make clear is it's never too late. I think that's the other thing. We often think it's like then they have to get everything done before they finish high school, and then that's it. And we know that's not it. I think going online for us, and I'd be curious, I wonder if you're finding the same thing in the LMB centers online, but we're getting a lot more adults signing up to address cognitive issues that they've had their whole lives. And as they get older, and as we get older, our processing slows down anyway. They're like, oh man, I got to tackle this now. But really, if your child, still needs to work on reading or writing after high school, go for it. take that time. There's no biological clock by when you need to finish high school or when you need to finish university or post-secondary. Like, take the pressure off. Like, there might be some social pain and grieving around that. But if with a couple years when they're teenagers compared to the whole rest of their life, I mean, they're never going to regret it. Yeah.
I'm so glad you said that. I have certainly had the pleasure of working with many adults to remediate their literacy and comprehension needs, and they have been some of my favorite students. And talk about internal motivation.
Right.
Though some of those students are like, let's go. I love that perhaps there's more opportunity for them to participate in something like this online. Than if you have to drive across town to go to the center to do your instruction and then drive, right? Whereas here you can jump on a friendly Zoom call.
Or they take their break at work and they jump in and join their class. Yeah.
Thanks again so much for sharing your perspectives with me today. During these challenging times, I think it's so important to celebrate the successes of schools, educators, and students, right? Mm-hmm. All my wishes for a continued safe and instructionally strong school year. Sarah, thank you so much.
Bill. Thank you for your time. Lovely to see you.
And
bye, everybody.
Thanks for watching. For more information about Lindamood-Bell or to schedule an overview of Lindamood-Bell professional learning levels, please connect with me through email, phone, or LinkedIn.